So I'd like to welcome everybody for coming to the Ultimate LinkedIn Strategy Session with Lasse Palomaki. I have been following him for almost a year now, and he has some great advice in many different areas. And we welcome you today to help level us all up on how LinkedIn can help us in the job search. And for those of you who are interested in following medical engineering, this is our QR code. A lot of interesting things going on in the College of Engineering in general, but we are an up and coming department, pretty new since 2018, 19, other than the PhD program, which was started way before then. And I am Terry Fox. I work for medical engineering, and I encourage you highly to follow me because I repost all kinds of amazing advice for anybody looking for internships or jobs, and it's all out there on LinkedIn. I sift through it, and if you follow me, I'll save you a lot of time of sifting through. So again, welcome to our career readiness session. And we are so happy to help make sure that you guys are ready for to be at the top of the pile when you're searching for a job. We are the sponsor for today's session, and we are a department of amazing faculty. Lots of grant money comes from our department. We have a cutting edge research coming in these main areas. And we are recording today's session, which will be made available with a YouTube link later. Your microphones are muted for now, but I will unmute them later. Questions, in the registration, we asked you if you wanted to submit questions, and I forwarded those over to Lasse, and he's going to hit those first. And as you have questions, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. And I'm going to send it over to you to share your screen, and I'm going to stop sharing.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. So while I'm pulling up my screen, welcome, first of all, everyone. My name is Lasse, as Terry mentioned. If you don't mind, just pop in the chat for us your major and your level in terms of, are you a graduate student? What is your major? And maybe even a target career, target role that you have in mind. So that way I got a little bit more context on your specific aspirations. We can maybe tailor the session a little bit to your needs and so on. And that way we could also, once again, make sure the chat is working, because I'll be asking quite a few questions from you as we go through this. Fantastic. Thank you, Thomas. We have information technology. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Krista, thank you. Honors advisor. Fantastic. Okay. So let me pop this open. And Terry, if you don't mind just confirming that the screen is working and sharing properly when it pops open on your end. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I see the chat flowing in, and please excuse me for looking away from my screen every now and then. I have to use the second screen with Teams. Otherwise, I can't see the chat. So I appreciate all of you popping those in here and helping me out a little bit that way. Now, a couple of things before we kick it off. As Terry mentioned, you all submitted questions. I appreciate you doing that. What I've done is I built those into the session. So as we go through the session, hopefully all of the questions that you have sent in will be addressed. And also at the very end, I'm opening the floor to any questions that I might have missed or anything that you want to dive deeper into. Now, two things to keep in mind as we go through this. Feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have questions or thoughts or want to dive deeper into something, or if I'm just unclear about what we're talking about. We can always pause for a second and address those questions in the moment. But if you feel like, hey, I don't want to do that in the moment, that's also okay. You can always take note of the slide number at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right here, and then we can address those at the very end as well and come back to any slides that you need to. Now, as a presenter, in terms of who I am and all that, I'll cover a little bit of my background in just a second. But one really, really important thing for you to know is that I don't like to lecture, and that means that I'll be asking a lot of questions from you, and I'm hoping we can have some engagement. So as we go through this, I'll be asking questions about topics X, Y, and Z, and so on. So if you don't mind, you're welcome to unmute yourself, or you can just pop it in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. But the more engaging we can make this, the more you'll get out of this, and hopefully more you retain. Okay, so that should be all. So we're going to kick it off. And like I said, I like to ask questions. So we're going to kick it off with a few questions here as we go through this. But the very first thing is probably the most important thing we'll talk about today. So why do we talk about LinkedIn? Why did Terry invite me to talk about this topic for you for over an hour, right? So why should you care about LinkedIn as a platform? Why do you need to be active there? Give me some thoughts once again in the chat or unmute yourself. Why should you as a student care about LinkedIn? I'll give you a few seconds here to think, unmute or pop it in the chat, and we'll start the conversation that way. And as you're thinking through this, like I said, some of your grad students, some of your undergraduate students, so you have a little bit of a different priority set in terms of, are you looking for an internship or a full-time job or something in between? So think through those lenses, but also think about some broader topics in terms of personal branding and whatnot. And like I said, I'll give you a few seconds and see what flows in the chat here. So we have easy ways to filter through hundreds of applicants. Okay, from a recruiter perspective, absolutely. A lot of companies, recruiters use LinkedIn. Awesome. Yep. LinkedIn allows us to connect others online, employment opportunities, employers, business marketplace. We can research alums, fantastic networking. Yeah, awesome. Training through LinkedIn, learning courses. That's a good one, Mark. Yeah. Okay, so good thoughts. Keep those coming in. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we talk through this a little bit more. But I'll give you a few specific reasons what I've noticed. And I work with thousands of students in the past few years in higher education, both undergraduate students, graduate students, as well as some PhDs in this specific topic. So everything we covered today is based on those best practices, and all the reasons I'm about to lay out here for you are the foundation for why you should be active on LinkedIn. So very first thing, and it's going to continue in that questioning theme, is that a high percentage of recruiters use LinkedIn. Now, what is that high percentage? Give me in the chat the ballpark number. That might be 80%, 70%, 40%, 95%, whatever comes to mind. What percentage of recruiters do you think use LinkedIn actively? Give you a second to pop some numbers in the chat once again. 80%, 50%, 95%. Give you a couple more seconds here. 87%, 87%, 97, 60, 75. Okay, fantastic. So the bottom line is here that you understand that a high percentage use them. Now, the exact number based on recent research is been right around 90%. Okay, so many of you are right on the spot, right between 85, 95, and so on. Now, there is no exact science behind this. This is kind of like a median, if you will, based on multiple studies that I've seen. It's ranged anywhere from 85 to 92 to 93%. So roughly 9 out of 10 recruiters use it. We have some fields like law enforcement, military, et cetera, where it's not quite as common, but most of the fields that you are looking into, you can make the assumption that my recruiter will likely be using LinkedIn. Now, a follow-up question on that. If we know that 9% of recruiters use LinkedIn, how do they use it or what do they use it for? So give me some insight on that. We know they use it, but how do they use it? Why do they use LinkedIn? So give me some thoughts on the recruiter perspective. What is LinkedIn adding value to them in terms of candidate reviews and whatnot? Okay, personally assessment. Okay, Thomas, that could be a piece of it. Yeah. So we could assess the candidate a little more holistically, maybe outside of their career only. Recruiting high potential candidates, easy to automate searches. Yes, Stephen, that's correct. We use LinkedIn Recruiter from the recruiter perspective. Keywords, we can sort through resumes. Yeah, they have a database on their end. Absolutely. What else? Give me a couple more things in the chat about this. How do recruiters use LinkedIn? Give me just a second here to think through before I pop a couple of answers here for you. Kenny is as good as they look on the resume. View individual connections. Awesome. Okay, thank you all. Now, broadly speaking, a few key themes include things like searching qualified candidates on LinkedIn Recruiter. So LinkedIn Recruiter is a separate piece of LinkedIn that as a recruiter, I could pay for, and I could pay like $10,000 a year to be able to access it. What that allows me to do is literally type in keywords, qualifications, experiences, education, etc., to find candidates that fit the profile of the qualified candidates I hope to fill my open positions with, okay? So that's when they build a talent pipeline using LinkedIn Recruiter. Second, they can review candidate profiles. So let's imagine you apply for an internship or a full-time job. Typically, nowadays, we include a LinkedIn URL on your resume. I would go to your resume or LinkedIn, and even if you don't include it, I could find you and review your profile to make sure it really aligns with what you have in a resume. And outside of those pieces in the resume, LinkedIn offers a lot of flexibility for you to talk about who you are as a person, not just as a professional, okay? So search, review, and third piece, post jobs on LinkedIn job board, okay? A lot of folks nowadays who look for jobs use LinkedIn to find them. And for recruiters, that is an easy way to get the word out about their positions. All right, we're gonna keep on going. A couple more questions for y'all. Now, the second reason why you need to be active on LinkedIn and why you should care is that there are X amount of users on the platform. So give me once again a ballpark number. How many active users? Actually, let me scratch that. Not active users. How many overall users do you think are on LinkedIn right now on the platform? And that's globally, not just in the US. Krista said 1 billion. Okay, so maybe Krista actually knew this answer. Fantastic. And that's exactly what it is, roughly 1 billion. Okay, and that includes almost 300,000 USF alumni. Okay, so from all kinds of majors, all kinds of programs, but still USF alums, 275,000 plus. So that is a fantastic network for you to tap into through LinkedIn. Now, how do these people use it? Okay, so they share insights and advice from their field, areas of expertise. They work in possibly targeted roles, targeted companies and industries, and they're happy to help students succeed. Okay, not all of these 1 billion users are active every single day. Not every one of them will be someone you want to connect with, but there's hundreds of thousands of people on LinkedIn that you can benefit from. So the first point I make here, they share insights and advice in their field and areas of expertise. Let's imagine you want to be, you're a computer science major, you want to go to software engineering or something like that. There's a ton of creators out there who are literally talking about their day-to-day life in those fields. What are the skills that are helping them succeed? Giving you tips on securing those positions, excelling in those positions, right? There's also a ton of folks who are not posting, but they're still in your target companies, roles, and industries. These are a fantastic way for you to tap into companies and specific areas and get your foot in the door, okay? And finally, like I said, many of these folks are very happy to help students succeed. So we're going to tap into all of this in terms of how do you actually build those connections, what do you say in those connection notes, etc., in just a moment. But before we do that, one more question before we dive into the actual LinkedIn content. So reason number 3, you should be active on LinkedIn because the average job opening in corporate America receives X applicants. How many applications do you think that average job opening in the US right now gets? 150? Okay. Give you a few seconds here to type some numbers in the chat for us. 5,000. Okay. What else comes to mind? 300, 200, 10K. Okay. Give me a couple more guesses here. 500. Give me 1 or 2 more. 2K. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So none of these numbers are the exact number. Once again, there's no exact science, but it's roughly 250. Okay. Now, keep in mind, this incorporates small companies, mom and pop stores, local companies. This incorporates also Amazon's, Apple's, NVIDIA's, etc., that receive thousands of applications, but the average is 250. Now, for you, that means you have a lot of competition. Okay. But the good news is that all of these folks, while they want to stand out just as badly as you do, and while they're networking, while they're gaining referrals, and while they have strong relevant qualifications, many of them do not know how to use LinkedIn properly. Okay. So if you know how to stand out on LinkedIn, build your brand, connect with recruiters, connect with alumni, you likely will have a leg up over a lot of these folks. Now, keep in mind, about 3 million people graduate from the US universities every single year. Average job opening is 250 applications. And there's a lot of folks who've been laid off lately, especially in the tech sector. So there's a lot of competition out there. So that means you have to leverage every single thing that you can to land your internships, land your target roles, and get the career that you want. Okay. So bottom line here, top applicants don't just submit a resume, they also submit a LinkedIn profile that is tailored to their target career. And I want to walk you through how do you optimize that process, how do you do the networking, etc. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit more about resumes and LinkedIn specifically. When you think about the 2 documents, you probably know that a resume will be submitted to every single job posting you'll ever apply to. That's just the basic default action we nowadays have in the recruitment process. But why do we add LinkedIn to that? Okay, so give me some thoughts on this. What are the similarities between resume and LinkedIn, and what are the differences? So in other words, why do we also use LinkedIn and not just a resume? Give me some thoughts on this in the chat as well. Similarities or differences between LinkedIn and resume. Give you a few seconds here to think through that and pop something for us to look in the chat. Job history interaction. Yep, absolutely good points, both of them. So job history wise, maybe the fact that, hey, resume typically is limited to 1 to 2 pages. LinkedIn does not have any limitations like that. Interaction with a lot of folks, so we can network, build awareness, connectedness to a company. We can find information, more space to write about your experiences. Synergies in terms of personal character, rather than numbers or statistics. Absolutely, Thomas. Validates what's in your resume, more details, more modern. Software reference from Stephen. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're spot on all of these things. Great. So you're on the right page. Okay. A few key details that I want you to keep in mind as well here. First of all, and Chris says searchable. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Resume is only an ambassador for you when you send it in, okay? There's not a single recruiter who is going to hack into your hard drive and look for your resume if you don't send it in, right? So unless you send a resume, nobody's going to see it. LinkedIn, on the other hand, you don't have to send it. You just publish your profile, you optimize it, and now there's 1 billion people who can view it if they want to. It's open 24/7 for business, okay? So it's working on your behalf. It's a 24/7 ambassador for you. Massive, massive perk if you're searching for jobs or building connections. Second, okay, resume, very focused on your career. LinkedIn, focused on your career, but also your personality, your values. So we might use the about section to talk a little bit about who we are, maybe about our interests and whatnot. We can create content around our interests or values or showcase what we want to do in our career, etc. So it's a more holistic view of who you are, not just as a professional, but also as a person. Okay, a couple more points here. We talked about the 250 applicants on average. That equals 250 resumes on a job posting for a recruiter to review. But that it does not equal 250 optimized LinkedIn profiles. So once again, you'll be competing against a lot of folks who present a resume, but not all of those folks will have a LinkedIn profile that really complements and adds to their candidacy. If you know how to use LinkedIn, you have a leg up. And finally, your resume is seen typically maybe by 3 to 5 people at a time. We have a recruiter, maybe a talent acquisition folk who helps source those candidates, somebody who are like a hiring manager to look at those resumes before they make a decision, and maybe you have a panel of 2 to 3 people at a time. Okay, so let's imagine the ballpark is 3 to 5 people, 3 to 7 people, something along those lines, who see your resume as a part of the process. LinkedIn wants to get the size of the audience is 1 billion people. Anyone can view your profile. So now you're not just sending your resume and hoping to proactively get a job, but you can attract recruiters to your profile, and you have a lot more variety in terms of folks who can view your qualifications, experience, and skills on the platform. Okay, so that's the foundation for our conversation today, why it's important for you to use LinkedIn and consider this platform you're going to tap into, okay? Now, why am I talking about all this stuff to you? Well, over the past about 3 to 5 years, I've taught over 3,000 undergraduate, graduate students, hosted workshops at over 30 institutions, including institutions like Cornell, UCLA, UT Dallas, U of Tennessee, etc. And all the things that we talk about today are based on the best practice that I have found working with students in these institutions and in the one-on-one setting, okay? So everything that we talk about today is battle tested. It has been applied to secure internships and full-time roles in the folks target companies that we work with. So you can feel confident that what we talk about today is going to add value to your process if you apply it the way we discuss. Okay, so let me pause here for just about 10 or 15 seconds. Any thoughts, questions, concerns so far about why we talk about LinkedIn and why it's so important to you as a student? Anything comes to mind, unmute yourself, pop it in the chat, but I'll give you a second here to think through about what we've covered so far. Okay, and I'll keep monitoring chat if somebody has something that pops in their mind in the middle of the session as well. But let's dive, actually, let me see. There will be recruited in places that I'm not interested in. Any thoughts? Okay, Krista, good question. The key piece of that is that we want to make sure the profile is optimized to our target careers. I will walk you through that right here in just a second. And once our profile is optimized to what we want to do in terms of specific career, industry, etc., the recruiters who view our profiles will be aligned with those qualifications because our profile speaks their language. Okay, but I'll walk you through that in a second here. Good question. Okay, so let's dive into the job search process. We'll imagine that today you have the realization like, hey, I need to secure an internship or a full-time job in my target role. What are all the steps that go into this process? So once again, in the chat, pop a few thoughts on what do you need to do to secure your target internship or target job? What goes in between realizing today I need that position to actually landing it? Give me some thoughts on this. You can drop individual ones or multiple ones in a row. Know what your job is, actually advertised as. Perfect. So really understand the job posting, really understand what am I expected to do in this role and what am I after? Okay, what else comes to mind? Give me some thoughts in the chat on how do we secure the position that we're after. Where you're looking geographically, that could be one piece, Davis. Yeah, we can filter based on our location. Listen to your interviews to find out what you want. Read JDs, develop skills, document skills, outcomes, apply, learn, network. Fantastic. Yeah. So all of you want to get on the right track. Thank you for that. Now, typically, the most important piece that you want to think as a student is career path. What am I after? So you have a major, but with any major, you can go down multiple paths. It's computer science, biomedical engineering. There's more than one job title that you can go after. So explore some options, understand what am I after. Okay, that's step number one. Once you decide what you're after, next you want to start building your brand once again in alignment with that specific area. So customizing your resume, building your LinkedIn profile, making sure that when people think about you, they associate with the skills and ideas in that field. No problem, Julia. Yes, this will be posted, and Terry, I think, is going to share it with you also. No problem at all. We appreciate you hopping on for a little bit. Now, we also want to network alumni, recruiters, professionals in our target fields. We want to find those positions, we want to apply to them, right? And then finally, we can prep for informational interviews, job interviews, to hopefully secure that role. The great news for you is, once again, LinkedIn is going to help you every single step of the way. And these are the kind of foundational steps that we'll cover today. Not just your profile, but all the other engagement pieces that come after that. Okay. So first of all, exploring careers. There's two key pain points that I often see with students. Okay. The very first pain point is, I have no idea what I want to do with my major. Okay. You have a major, computer science, biomedical engineering. You find it interesting, but I have no idea what the titles that I want to go with, right? I don't know what kind of career paths are ahead of me. So what you can do with LinkedIn, I'm going to show you here, and I'm going to take you to LinkedIn instead of my slideshow. And what I've done here, I went to the USF institutional page on LinkedIn. We can use the alumni tab right here. And what we can do next, we can filter based on these slicers up here. And right here, it says what they studied, okay? And you see a lot of folks here, 22,000, 17,000, 12,000, etc., based on specific majors. Now, one caveat, LinkedIn has some kind of a bug right now where I cannot click on any of these filters, but typically you could do that. So I would still encourage you to try on your end. It's been this way for several years where you can click on these. And when you, let's imagine I click on computer science, what will happen is that this listing right here, people you may know, now is filtered based on only people who have been computer science majors at USF. Okay. So once again, I unfortunately cannot click on it right now. There's some kind of a bug on LinkedIn's end, but try it on your end. Click on the major that you have and go down here and start looking through these folks. If you mainly see students, come up here and add an end year for the degree. So let's imagine I had 2020. That would mean that it only shows people who have a degree from USF before 2020. So essentially people who have already graduated. So now we can filter this list. We already went from 200 plus thousand to 198. And you will notice that a lot of these people, instead of being students, now we have full-time professionals. Okay. So like I said, filter based on your major here, and then also filter based on graduation years or key titles. Okay, so that's step one. Now, I would give you more insight on this, but unfortunately, like I said, LinkedIn is a little bit laggy on this end right now. So we're going to go back to our presentation. I'll show you the next step here. Let's imagine you go through that list. You find a couple of positions that are really of interest to you. The next question you probably have is, okay, I know I want to be a R&D engineer or a software engineer, but I have absolutely no idea how do I actually get to that role, right? I have a target in mind, but I have no idea what I'm going to do to get to that point. So what you can do next, okay, I'm going to show you another thing on LinkedIn here. I've run a search here using the people tab up here. And essentially what you simply do, you go to LinkedIn and you can type it up here. But the search that I've run here, if I'm going to show you really quick, I typed in a major. So for example, biomedical engineering. And I also typed a Boolean search for a couple of job titles that I think might be relevant to what I want to do. So that could be engineer, that could be an R&D scientist, or something in between. So using a search like this, once again, we have a major up here, and then we have a couple of key titles that we're looking for, is now yielding 71 people who are also USF alumni. And how I added the USF filter, I went to all filters, and I went all the way down here, and I added in the school section right here. Now, 71 people match these search criteria. So I'm just going to pick one here. Let's say, I believe his name might be Demola. So let's look at his profile. We see he's a biomedical engineer. Okay, we're going to come down a little bit, just experience. Currently at a Medtronic, an engineer. Okay, so if you're a biomedical engineering graduate or to-be graduate, maybe an engineering position is something you'll be looking into. And maybe a company could be Medtronic because it's in the right field for you. Let's go a little bit down. We see education. Okay, so Demola's degree, undergrad, USF, chemical engineering, and then he also got a master's degree from UConn in biomedical engineering. Now, you might be asking, well, he didn't get his master's from USF. Is that okay? It's perfectly okay. You still have the affinity from USF through his undergraduate degree. So let's imagine, once again, you want to become an engineer in Medtronic. Now we have Demola, who is a fantastic connection for you to reach out to, okay? And all we did, like I said, is we used the key terms that we wanted through a Boolean search. We filtered based on USF, and now we found all these folks who are USF alums in our target fields, in our target positions, who we can ask advice from. So coming back here to the presentation, these are 2 steps in terms of exploring careers. But one thing to keep in mind is LinkedIn is a fantastic tool, but there's nothing like talking to your current professors or faculty members or staff members like Terry and asking, hey, who are the alums from our program from the last couple of years who've gone to really cool positions that I might be interested in? And if you can, do you have their emails? Can you connect me with them? Okay, so let me pause here for a second. That is the first step, exploring different careers. And I think there's a couple of things in the chat. Okay, you can add join USF link. Awesome, Krista, thank you for adding that resource. So let me pause here for a second. What comes to mind about exploring careers? Any thoughts, questions, concerns about this piece right here? Give you a second, type your thoughts, unmute yourself if you need to, but this is just a foundational way for you to explore careers, positions, or people in your target positions on LinkedIn. So I'll give you a second, unmute, put in the chat if something comes to mind. If nothing is of concern, that is also fine. We can continue in just a second. Okay, one question, can we search for people who are in the same club? So there is no filter for that, Krista. But what we can do, and I'll go back to the share tab right here for LinkedIn, the search function is extremely flexible for us. So instead of typing biomedical engineering, Krista, if you don't mind, put in the chat a specific club that could be an example for us to use here. SHPE. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to type in SHPE, and we're going to type in, let's say, actually, let's just use that as the key term for now. We're going to go to USF, and then let's start looking through these people. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and add. And let's see, engineer. And Krista, is it in Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers? Fantastic, it is. Okay, so let's see if anything comes up here. So I added SHPE as the club, and I also added engineer, and we have the USF filter. So let's go to Thai right here, and let's see a couple of these profiles. So I have one profile open here, undergraduate research, then I'm going to see there's something. Okay, SAP certified chapter leader, net relations, SAP USF. Okay, and let's see the second one that I popped open for us here. I'm going to see if anything comes up here. Okay, here. So Kristen, what I did here, I went to the search bar, I added the club name, and I added engineer because engineering is one of those key terms that you said in terms of the fields for this specific area. And I look at the first 2 profiles, and what we find here is that these folks, for example, Alexander, he went to USF 2023 computer science grad, and he was a part of its SHPE. Okay. Does that answer your question, Krista? Is that helpful? Awesome. Okay. So this is a way, there's no filter for that, but we can be very flexible in terms of what we search for. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns about the exploring careers piece that we covered so far? Okay, Kasra said, help me search specific key phrase in about the job section. I found no solution link except doing it with Google. Kasra, can you expand on that a little bit? When you say about the job, is that in terms of the job board that we have here, or is that somewhere else? Okay, so let's go about the job. I'm just going to type in project manager. And we're going to go here. Okay, Kasra, and right here is the about the job section. And then I found a solution who search a specific key phrase. Okay, so essentially what you're asking is how do we search for maybe a specific phrase in this area right here in the job description? Is that correct? If you just don't mind saying yes or no. Awesome. Okay, so what you can do here, I've added project manager as a key title. What I can do is a Boolean search once again. So let's see, overseeing subcontractors. I know that is not probably what you have in mind, but I'm just going to use it anyway. Actually, let's just use the term subcontractors. And I'm going to type in right here, and I'm going to add subcontractors and a filter. We went from 39,000 to 7 results. Okay, so now what we've done is we want to find project manager positions, and we also want to make sure that somewhere in that posting there is the term subcontractors. So if I'm going to do a search here, let's do sub. Okay, and you'll find it right here. Okay, Kasra, is that helpful? Using the Boolean search in the job board as well, a job title and a key term. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to pause here for now because we've got to keep going for the sake of time. But once again, when you think about exploring careers, positions, clubs, whatever people might be affiliated with, those are the ways that we can find them on LinkedIn and we can learn from them when we reach out to them. Okay, next thing we cover, okay? We're done the exploring piece. Now it's time to build our brand. So let me ask you this. In the chat, once again, pop some thoughts on what are some overlooked sections that you think student profiles often are missing, overlooking, are really not doing the best job that they could in terms of selling who they are as qualified candidates. So what comes to mind here? Projects and clubs, awesome. What else? Give you a few seconds here to think. Skills, okay, good. Skills and interests, fantastic. What else? Skills, interests, yep. Give you a few more seconds here. Experience, okay, yep. Publications, awesome. Okay, all of you once again on the right track. So I'll give you a few. Like I said, I work with thousands of students. Terry says about, we have activity, awesome, yeah. So I work with thousands of students on this exact topic, and I'm going to give you the 6 areas that I see the most commonly overlooked section on their LinkedIn profiles. This does not mean that every other section is typically perfect. They're not, but these are the ones that I think can really move the needle for you while still being relatively easy to fix. So first, custom URL. I'll come to that, back to this in a second. Second, your banner. Third, your headline. Fourth, your about section. Fifth, your experience. And sixth, recommendations. Okay, so let me explain each one of these for you. Custom URL, first of all. What you will see is that if you look at somebody's profile, I don't know if you can see my URL bar right now because it might be just sharing the actual content of the screen, but in the URL right here, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner of your profile, it says your public profile and URL. Okay, so for me, it's literally LinkedIn in, and then let's say Palomaki, my first name, last name. If you click on this right here, what you will notice that you can actually, I'm going to go to this next one, perfect. You can actually change this on your settings super easily. What you want to do is make it a first name dash last name, that last name, first name, or some variation like that. Something super simple. Because if you don't do that, what it's going to look like on your end is something like this. First name dash last name, and then some random variation of numbers, letters, characters, etc. You do not want to have these. Not because it makes you more qualified for a job because you have a custom URL, it doesn't, but it shows attention to detail. Also, when I'm looking at your resume, for example, and I see a resume, or sorry, LinkedIn URL on the top of the page, it is much cleaner, much more professional, once again shows attention to detail. So customize the URL and pop it over to your resume as well. So that's piece one. Now we're gonna come back here. Banner, headline, about section, experience. I'm gonna show you these through a mock profile I've created. So if you go on LinkedIn and you look for Natalie, it says not real. That's my very clever wordplay here. But Natalie Real is a mock profile that you can find on LinkedIn. And this is the way that I would optimize your LinkedIn profile if I was a student or if I were to help you, okay? The banner, first of all, a lot of folks include something like a picture of USF campus or maybe something related to your major, etc. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if I'm a recruiter, I have 250 applicants to go through. I'm not going to take a deep dive into your resume or LinkedIn profile cover letter. I'm just going to skim through it at first before I see, is this something that's hooking me in, giving me some reason to dive deeper. Let's imagine that you are applying for a position as a marketing analyst as an entry-level role. I know it's not relevant to most of you, but let's imagine it was. If I'm a recruiter for that role, I hop over to Natalie's profile. Right off the bat, I see, okay, Natalie's at UNC Charlotte, marketing analytics major, relevant to what I'm looking for. And then she's really strong in Google Analytics, market research, and SQL. All skills that are relevant to her target career and what I'm looking for. Okay, so banner section, immediate strong first impression. Second, we have your headline. A lot of students simply say, let's say student at USF or computer science student at USF. If you do that, you're lumping yourself in the same bucket as all the other computer science students at USF or just overall students. And I know there's a lot of students. I used to work at USF, actually, I forgot to mention that for 2 years. I know we had a ton of students, I think 60,000 across 3 different campuses, etc. So do not lump yourself in the same bucket as everyone else. Be more specific. Do you have an internship? Are you a club president? Do you have those skills once again the recruiters look for, right? Include some of those in the headline. Now, the reason why we do that is, let me show you. If I type in here once again a search, and I type in, actually, let me just use something that might be more related to you all. Let's say Java and Python, okay? A lot of you probably are developing some of these skills. I'm just gonna type those in here. I'm not using LinkedIn Recruiter. The folks who do use that have a lot more flexibility in terms of the way they run these things, searches. I go to the People tab, and right now what you see, all of these folks have Java, Python, Java, Python, Java, Python, Java, Python in their headline. The reason for that is that LinkedIn searches prioritize the algorithm, or the algorithm prioritize the headline in your profile. So if you only say student at USF or computer science student at USF, chances are that nobody's going to find your profile through these searches, right? So you want to be specific. What are the skills my target roles are interested in? And I'm going to show you in a second how to find that. And then how do I incorporate those into my profile? Only list skills that you're actually proficient in, but when you have those, pop them in here. Because the more you have those in your profile in multiple places, the more likely it is that you will be recruited and recruiters come to you as opposed to you coming to them. Two examples. My previous role before my current role at Elon University, North Carolina, was at USF, and I never applied for the role. USF recruiter reached out to me because my profile once again talked about the exact qualifications they were looking for. So I attracted a recruiter and I received the job offer because of that. Second, I've had a lot of students who've secured internships and full-time roles just because their LinkedIn profile is optimized and recruiters have found them. So do not underestimate this. Ask yourself, what are the skills that my recruiters care about? You can simply go to jobs. We can type in project manager as an example. And right here typically is a skills match. Look through this button if they have it. It's literally telling us skills added by the job poster. So you should be qualified in these areas ideally. Once you have them, start incorporating these into your profile. Now, the key difference between a resume and LinkedIn is that your resume is a job-specific application, meaning that you customize for every job posting that you're applying to. LinkedIn, you can't do that because you can iterate it to 10 positions at any given time that you might be applying to. So you want to go through a bunch of these positions that you might be interested in, and then you want to find patterns. If every single one of them says, let's say AutoCAD, might not be relevant to you, it might be, I don't know. Let's imagine that it is, and it's in every posting you're applying to. Okay, well, AutoCAD is probably something you would incorporate into your profile because you know all the recruiters in your target positions want you to have that skill. Okay, so let's go back. And I'm going to pause here in a second to give you space to ask any questions that come to mind. But so far, we've covered banner, headline. Okay, these are the first impression that you're providing when somebody pops your profile, what we call above the fold. And scroll down a little bit. Okay, I landed in your about section. I will give you a second to read through this, and you tell me what you see here. Okay, so take a look at the about section and tell me, just broadly speaking, what do you see? Okay, what are some key themes or areas that we're discussing in Natalie's about section? Data driven, good. Okay, what else comes to mind? Google Analytics, fantastic. Give you a second. Personal hobbies, recruitment strategy, awesome, awesome. Okay, so strong theme, Super Bowl, personal details, exactly. Yeah, you're on the right track here. So what we did here, okay, the framework that I like to use with students that I work with, we started with a little bit of education because as a student, that is very relevant to who you are. Recruiters want to know if you're a student or if you're a full-time professional. So we kick it off with that. Next, we provide a little bit of evidence to our claims. So right now we make claims that we're really good at marketing analytics and market research. But if we don't include any evidence, it's just a claim. So right off the bat, once again, we're convincing them, right? We've done X, we've done Y, we've done Z. And all of these are like a movie trailer for your profile, right? If we can convince somebody based on a movie trailer to watch a 2-hour movie, so in LinkedIn terms, about something can convince somebody to do a view for a whole profile, the better, okay? Now, one thing that a lot of you pointed out is the personal details. Right here, love for all things marketing, started at a young age because of X. I'm a Panthers fan, and I'm also passionate about photography, travel, and good coffee. Why on earth are we including something about our personality here? What does that do for us? Any thoughts on that? Memorable. Krista, that is exactly what we're trying to do here. So, and Steve, exactly. Let's try a little bit of personality. Imagine you're a recruiter. You have Derek, exactly spot on. Imagine you're a recruiter. You have, let's say, 250 applications once going to go through. You look through a ton of those, dozens of those LinkedIn profiles. And for most of those folks, it's going to be their major, maybe a little bit of their experience. But let's imagine that you are also a Panthers fan. Let's imagine you also love travel. You also love good coffee. Natalie's profile is immediately more memorable to you. So it does not qualify her for the role, but it makes her memorable. And that little bias can be really helpful to you because people like people who like the same things, right? So adding personal details can be very valuable. Now, what we also have here is our top skills. Once again, repeat it. Same thing here, align with our target roles, okay? And that happens in the about section. You'll have a little pen icon that you can go through to do that. Now, I'm gonna go back here so we stay on track. So we've covered URL, banner, headline, about section. in terms of experience, I'm just going to give you a really quick outline here. What you want to do, you want to have the position title, the company, the dates, as well as bullet points. Vast majority of profiles on LinkedIn do not have any bullet points. But let's imagine I'm a recruiter. I find you on LinkedIn, one of those searches, and I go to your experience section. All I see is a job title. I have no idea what you've done, right? So keep in mind, people find your LinkedIn profiles even outside your resume. And if they have not seen your resume because they do the search instead, they have no idea what you've done. So incorporate the same bullet points as you would have in your resume or something aligned with those. And let's see, Stephen, is bullet over narrative? Yes, the more specific, more to the point you can get, the easier it is. If you want to be more of a quote unquote a narrative in terms of telling a story from a first person, that's okay. But as a recruiter, they don't have a lot of time. They like to skim. And in that case, bullet points are more efficient. Additionally, experience section is one of those areas where the algorithm is looking for these key skills. So if you think about SQL or Python or Java, try to build those into your bullet points as well. It's going to pick up in the searches and it's going to be very efficient for the recruiter to go through. Now, I'm going to ask as many of you as you can to help me with the next one here, okay? Recommendations. Simply yes or no in the chat. Let's see how many answers we can get here. Do you have recommendations in your profile? And like I said, I ask, even if you've not said anything so far in the chat so far, put it in there. So we have yes, no, 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 yes, no, 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 no. Okay. So if you're looking at the chat, you're probably seeing the theme here. Okay. 95%, 99%, I don't know the exact number, but a vast majority of LinkedIn profiles do not have any recommendations. So in a typical job search, what happens is you go through resumes, interviews, etc., and then toward the tail end of that process, they will actually, call your references and ask, hey, Lasse claims he's really good at X or Y. Is he actually good at those? Can you tell me a little bit more insight on that? So then they check those references. If you can provide this social proof ahead of time, that is a fantastic way for you to stand out. Because imagine, just like you go to Amazon to look at customer reviews or Netflix to pick up a IMDb review before you decide to watch a movie, recruiters do the same thing. If there's social proof about your skills, you have a leg up over anyone who's just making claims, has nobody backing them up. So I'm going to share this document right here with you all. It has 70 pages of everything we're going to cover today, including everything we covered so far and all the other things we'll get to. But right here, there's a recommendation section. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't create just this very basic recommendation request that says, hey, would you write me a recommendation? If I do this, Alex has no idea what I want him to talk about or her to talk about. But if I specify like, hey, reaching out to request a recommendation regarding my internship with you, if you feel comfortable, please highlight market research and positive outcomes are created in X, Y, and Z on buying behaviors. I'm literally asking Alex to give me a tailored recommendation to my target field. Now, recruiter pops from my profile, and even the recommendations are talking about the exact skills that you want to see in qualified candidates. Okay, so going back here, A, most people don't have recommendations. B, the ones who do are rarely customized. So if you have custom recommendations from professors, past colleagues, mentors, supervisors, etc., you have a massive leg up. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind when you want to optimize your profile, study those preferences of your target audience, the knowledge they look for, the skills, the qualifications in those job descriptions, and use the skills match that we talked about earlier, okay? So like I said, you'll find it in most of the postings up here, and it'll tell you how many skills you have in your profile that match. If you have some of these that are gray, just add it to your profile using the plus sign right here. All right, come back here. Once again, LinkedIn is great, but nothing beats having informational interviews with people in the field, as well as employer events that you talk to recruiters. Okay, so I'm gonna pause here for a second. I see there's a couple of questions already. Thoughts, questions about what we covered in terms of profiles, pop them in the chat and we can go through as needed. But let's see, Stephen, you say, is it advisable if they call the recommendations from peers in your workplace? Yes, peers in the workplace are perfectly fine. Colleagues, for example, as long as they can speak to your abilities and as long as they can reference a specific experience, project, or something you've contributed to. So as you saw in the example that I provided for you in the guide, it said, hey, can you talk about my ability to do X in a specific setting? If you can do that, it is helpful. Now, what does not add a ton of value is you asking all your friends from college to add those recommendations, because recruiters don't take those as most credible recommendations because you're just asking your friends and anyone can claim those. Stephen, is that helpful? Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to keep on going because we have about 15 or 20 minutes, I believe, in terms of the actual session. And then we're going to open up the more questions. Let's see, Thomas. recommendation from a peer in my workplace is nothing with the career path I'm striving in, for example, working in pharmacy, getting out of career. Thomas, you could do that. I would focus on those transferable skills. So look for the JDs, and let's imagine your friend's name is Bob. Ask Bob to talk about your customer service or whatever might be relevant to your area in IT, organizational skills, or something like that. So as long as there's transferable skills, it is still helpful. Okay, good questions. Anything else comes to mind, just pop it in the chat. We'll get back to them later. Now, we've covered exploring career paths, building a profile that is really optimized for your target career. And next step we want to do is start networking. Now, question for y'all. You want to optimize your profile before you engage. So before you comment on anyone post, before you start posting yourself, before you start reaching out to recruiters and alumni, you want to optimize your profile. Why is that? Why is that the first step instead of first networking and then optimizing your profile? Give me some thoughts on that. First impression. Okay, good. First impression. Yep, you're on the right track here. Now, what happens if you send a request to someone or you send them a DM through an open profile or something like that? What do? They see Lasse is reaching out to me. I've never met Lasse. What am I going to do? What's their first instinct to do? Let's see. I'll give you a second here to think through that. See if they know you. Go to see your profile. Diego, spot on. Okay. No matter how you engage, profile views, comments, DMs, requests, whatever that is, they will look at your profile. If your profile is not optimized, if it is completely outdated, doesn't have a profile picture, does not speak the language of the target audience, chances are they will not respond. Okay. But if it is optimized, if it has a friendly, welcoming headshot, if it talks about the headline, the banner is in shape, the about section is welcoming, chances are they're like, hey, I might as well respond. This person seems very kind. I understand why they're reaching out to me, etc. So optimize your profile, then engage. Okay. Now, let's ask you this. We've talked about the idea of optimizing profile, engaging with folks, etc. How do we find our target audience? So we actually covered quite a bit of this already. So let me just hop over here and show you really quick. What you want to do is you want to use those Boolean searches on LinkedIn, just like we did so far. So let me walk you through the whole process. I'm going to just take these guys out here. I'm going to go to an empty search from the LinkedIn homepage. So right here, nothing in the search bar. What I could do right here is type in research or scientist or engineer, okay? Because these might be target titles for you as you think about your career. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I'm going to come over here to ChatGPT. So a lot of you might have used ChatGPT in the past, not directly LinkedIn related, but I want to show you really quick. Let's imagine, let's say I'm a computer science major looking to obtain a project manager role upon graduation. What I would do is I would ask, what are some other job titles that companies might use to describe project manager roles? Okay, so now what I'm doing here is that I understand I want to be a PM, but okay, if project manager is not the exact title that my target company is using, they might be using something like a product manager, or program manager, or technical project manager, or something in between, engineering manager. Okay, so the reason why we do this once again is that different companies who do the same exact work might use different titles for the same roles. So use this as a tool for you to figure out once again what you put up here. So researcher, scientist, engineer, or some of those alternative titles that you find through ChatGPT. We're going to hit search. We're going to go to the people tab. And then what we're going to do is going to go to all filters. I'm going to go down here. We're going to go to school. I'm going to type in South Florida. We're going to activate that one. And then we can also add an industry if we want to. So let's imagine once again in biomedical engineering, I could type in right here, medical equipment manufacturing, show results, and we have 16 folks in this space. Okay. For example, Kuvat, let's see, R&D engineer. Maybe that is a role that you're really interested in. We're going to go down. We're going to see, okay, he got his master's as well as his PhD from USF, so double alum, fantastic. Going to go up here, what he's done, mechanical engineering, research scientist, intern, and then senior engineer currently. Okay, Edwards Life Sciences. So if this is the type of role, the type of the company or field you want to get into, now what we've done, once again, we've created for you a short list of people that you can look into. Okay, so use the search bar, use these Boolean searches, use the filters up here. There's a bunch of other filters that you can also use in terms of connections, first connections, second connections, etc. Different companies that you might want to look into, etc. So use the filters, use the Boolean searches to your advantage. Okay. I'm going to come back here. We'll pause once again in a moment to answer any questions you have. But the next thing you want to think about is, okay, we have a target list in mind. That might be Kuvat, that might be someone else. What do we say to them when we reach out to them? How do we reach out to them? Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. Give me some thoughts in the chat. Let's imagine that, I'm going to go back here so you can see this. Let's imagine you want to reach out to Kuvat right here. Okay, he's the target person you have in mind. You want to be an R&D engineer in the med sciences field. How do I reach out to him? Okay, so A, how do I send him a message to him? And B, what do I say in that note? So I'll give you about 15, 20 seconds here. Think through this and give me some thoughts in the chat. Either how do we reach out to them? So how do we send them a message on LinkedIn? Or B, what do we say in that note? So take a second, think through those, and we'll give you some examples here in a second. If it's quicker to unmute, you're also welcome to do that. But let's see here. Open with a common interest that we can discuss. So yeah, do not open with help me. Yeah, that is not a good way to open up, absolutely. I'll give you some examples here. Krista says, senior USFC's major, would appreciate a chance to look at 2 questions. Skills most sought in R&D when hiring. Fantastic. Yeah, Krista, love that. Love that. What else comes to mind? You can just drop in quick words or other things here. Ask about them and look at the common interests you see in their profile. Yeah, common interest, that seems to be a good theme here. Show interest in their work or projects. Love it. Awesome. You guys are doing a great job here. So let me see if there's a couple more. Find something about their experience that impressed you. Love it. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we want to make them feel good about themselves. We want to compliment them. We want to show common interests, etc. Now, let me walk you through the first step, which is how do we message them? And then I'll show you some examples of what do we say. Let's say, Diego, you can send a connection request, ask questions. Awesome, awesome. Good. Okay. So Kuvat, third connection, okay, or third level connection. That means that I'm not connected directly and I have no mutual connections with him. That's okay. What I can do first, if I want to, I can try to connect with him, okay? I can add a note, and what you'll notice here, I'm a premium member, I have unlimited notes, and I have 300 characters right here. If you are not a premium member, you only have 200 characters. It's a very short note, and you only have 5 of these notes every single month. So this is going to drastically limit your outreach on LinkedIn if you're not a premium member. And even as a premium member, the notes are not that long. So option that you can use if you want to, but it is not your best option, okay? And what you can do here, since you only have 5 notes, if you use this, go check out their activity right here. He hasn't posted anything. Let's see if there's any other activity. Comments, let's see really quick. 1 year, reactions, let's see. 14 hours, okay. So Kuva liked something 14 hours ago, so we can assume he's active on LinkedIn, which is great. So that gives us the clue like, hey, we can send a note and he will likely receive it. If you find profiles who are not engaged, not reacting, there's no indication that they're even on the platform, don't waste a note. Okay, so connection note is one option. Second, click on the message button right here. If they are not an open profile user, it will say use an email credit. You can only do that using premium. Okay, so I could do that, but if you're not a premium member, you could not. Now, some folks, including myself, so if you look at my profile, you will find that instead of saying use email credits, this will say free message. That means that I have an open profile, anyone can message me. So always check the message because you never know who's active. If they have an open profile, you can message them even without connecting. Okay? Other ways that we can do that. If you feel like, hey, I've run on my connection notes, they don't have an open profile, if they have any content that they post, you can start dropping comments or likes or questions in that content, and that is what we call a soft introduction. So if you think about through marketing, we want to build trust with our audience. We need multiple touch points. There's a rule of 7, as we call it in marketing. That means you need about 5 to 7 touch points with your audience to build trust with them before they make a buying decision. Same thing happens on LinkedIn with networking. If you drop X amount of comments, like let's say 3 to 5 comments, or like their content, they start seeing your name here in notifications, as you would see like Skylar mentioned me, somebody mentioned me in a comment, etc. As I see these, I would know Jason, I would know Bethel, Skylar, etc. Same thing happens to you. If you comment, if you like, if you repost, they will get notifications. And if they see your name now, you can probably simply just go here and connect even without a note, and they might accept it because they've seen your name. They might have even looked at your profile. So you've built the trust already before connecting. Okay, so far 3 avenues: connecting, messaging, open profiles, or through soft introduction and activity. If none of those work for you, go all the way down here, go to groups right here, and look at the groups that they're a part of, okay? whatever group that they're part of, if you can join that same group, you can reach out to them directly without ever connecting with them. And I'm going to show you through that a group that I'm personally a part of. So right here, you'll notice groups on my left-hand side. I'm going to go to the Elon network, my current employer. I'm going to go to all connections, almost 11,000 members, show all. And right here, second connection, etc. I click message. I can message any of these folks without ever connecting with them. Let's see if it pops open for us here. Okay, there we go. So Kate, second connection, but I can write a message. It doesn't ask me for email credits, nothing, just because we're in the same group. Okay, so what you can do, go through these people's profiles, look at the groups that they're a part of. Let me close these out for you all. Go to the groups, see what they're part of. Okay, Kuvat is a part of Energy and Sustainability CIS. Ideally, we find some folks who are part of USF related groups, and then we can do that, USF alumni, etc. But always, when you find a profile, go to the groups and see if you can join the same group, and then that you have an avenue where you don't have to connect with them. Okay, if all of these fail, we are not able to send a connection note, we're not sending a DM, we're not engaging with them because they're not posting content, they're not a part of any group, what you can do next, we can go to pages like hunter.io right here, or we can go to another one called contactout.com. Both of these pages allow you to sign in for free. And what it allows you to do really is just look for people. So that could be Lasse at, let's say, Elon University, or Lasse at Pied Piper or NVIDIA, or whatever that is. And it's going to give you my email address. So this is a free platform you can use. I've used it with many students. And now you find essentially the email format for these folks in these companies. Once you have one format, you probably have the same format for all the other folks working there as well. So all those fails, you can use Hunter Contact Out as well. Now, let me come back to our guide here. So I'm going to open up the tab here on the left-hand side, and all of you will have access after our call today. But I'm going to go to the networking approaches right here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. This is what you want to say in the note itself. It is not a black and white situation. It is not the only way to approach it, but this is a very, very highly effective way that I would battle test that, and it's going to work out for you if you try it. It is a numbers game overall. Not everyone will respond. That is okay. But this is a format that has yielded good results for the students that I work with. Okay, first, common ground. I think most of you said that in the chat already, so thank you for doing that. Fantastic, in the right track. Second, purpose-free outreach. So why the heck am I reaching out to this person, right? If there's no purpose, there's no incentive for them to respond. And then call to action. What am I expecting them to do for me? Now, typical notes, and actually you'll see right here, this says 5 personal notes, 200 characters, okay? This is a non-premium user. Now, oftentimes when I have students reaching out to me for advice or something like that, this is what they say. Hey, would love to add you to my network. If I'm on LinkedIn, I really have no incentive to respond to this, right? They just say they want to add me to the network. But let's imagine John sends a note, say, hey, I'm a marketing junior at UNC Charlotte or Elon or USF or whatever that is. Really admire the career view builders marketing leader at IBM, which is my target company. Would love to connect and ask a few questions, okay? 200 characters, super effective, super efficient, and it covers all the basics that I need to know as a receiver to have an incentive to respond to you. Okay, so be mindful of this. Now, if you type this note and it's 200, let's say 12 or 20 characters, put in ChatGPT and say, hey, please condense this to 200 characters. And that's going to reformat it for you, hopefully in a way that's going to fit in this box. Okay, so option 1 is right there. Common ground, purpose for outreach, call to action. Second, I'm going to go down here. If you're reaching out to a recruiter or hiring manager instead, okay? Oh, I apologize. Thank you for pointing that out. I totally blanked on that. So let's go up here. I'm going to show you again. Right here, the strategy guide that I showed you all earlier, you'll have access to this. On the networking approaches section, you can go to common ground right here, or the formatting, with alumni, common ground, purpose for outreach, call to action. So these are the pieces I just covered. Really apologies. I forgot that I had to share this page instead. Now, this is the note that I said a lot of folks send when they connect. Would love to add you to my network. Not a lot of incentive to connect or respond, right? On the right-hand side, this is the note that I said as the second one that you might have heard me but didn't see me actually show this. It could be something like, I'm a junior at UNC Charlotte, admire the career you built at IBM, which is my target company. Would love to connect and ask a few questions. Once again, 200 characters. You can use ChatGPT to formulate it if you need to, but very, very straightforward, effective approach. Okay, common ground, purpose, call to action. That is for alumni or industry professionals. If you reach out to recruiters, we're going to tweak it a little bit. A lot of students say this to recruiters. Do we have any open internships for marketing students? there's once again very little incentive for the recruiter to help. Okay. Additionally, you are now asking the recruiter to do all the work for you. You don't want to do that because they will not do that work for you. They're busy as it is. They're not going to take the extra time to help you specifically. So instead, once again, be specific. I have applied for your digital marketing internship, job ID 123456. This is essentially saying a purpose or a specific role I'm interested in. Second, we're qualifying ourselves. I have a strong background in market analytics, Google Analytics, and SQL. We qualified ourselves for the role, gave them the reason to look at our profile because we're a good candidate. And third, would love to speak to you about the role. Once again, 200 characters, super short, super effective and efficient, but an easy way for you to reach out. Now, if they have an open profile, we can expand on it, of course. If we send an email, we can expand on it. But if you're using the connection note, that is the exact approach. And the same thing here in longer format ones as well. Common ground, purpose, call to action. Okay, let me pause here for a second now. We covered some different avenues in terms of how to send a note. So once again, open profiles, connection notes, etc., and also what to say in those notes. Thoughts, questions on this approach in terms of reaching out and actually tactically getting that note out to them and hopefully convince them to respond to us. Give you a second to think through this if there's anything that comes to mind. Just carefully select who you contact. Don't waste your time. Exactly. That's why we filter the folks, find the people who actually can help us, hopefully, or align with our career interest, hopefully find the ones who are active, and then we get that note out. Yeah. Okay, so while you think through that, there's actually one more thing that you can do if you want to get a connection note out, and that is essentially introduction. So we covered the groups, mutual connections right here. So let me go to a search for you really quick. And I want to go here. I'm going to go to LinkedIn. I'm just going to type in right here. This does not have to be a USF alum, but I'm just going to type in project manager. And right here, I'm going to go to people. And now instead of filtering with, let's say, USF or something, I could put in a second connection. Okay. So now I only see people who have a second connection with. So that means there's a mutual connection between the two of us. So I could look at Brent, for example. Okay, Taylor Stuck is a mutual connection. What I could do is I could message, whether that is email, LinkedIn, or text if I know them well enough, and say, hey, Taylor, would you mind putting Brent and myself in the same message on LinkedIn and introduce us? Taylor can do that. So Taylor's connected to both of us. I'm not connected to Brent, but he can put us in the same chat, and now I have a direct line to Brent. So once again, mutual connections, introductions. These are soft, warm connections that are very much more likely yield results, engagements, etc., than people just cold outreaching to people that you might not know. Okay, so I'm going to pause here for a second. We covered a lot about the networking piece. I know our time is limited, but let's think about this for a second. Any thoughts, questions, concerns about how do we reach out to people on LinkedIn? How do we find them? What do we say in that note? Give you just a second to think through this before we tackle the last couple of pieces that I have here. Okay. You can think through if anything comes to mind, but we're going to keep on going for now. So once again, LinkedIn is great. Email is king. Most folks check their emails much more often than LinkedIn. How do we find the recruiter for the job we're interested in? Okay, Krista, good question. I'm going to come back here. I go to jobs. I'm going to type in project manager as an example. Sometimes, like here, it says meet the hiring team. Okay, so that's one option. If that is not an option right here, what we can also do is we can go to RBW Consulting. We can go to their people tab right here, and we can start typing things like talent acquisition or HR or recruiter. And now what I'll find here, actually nothing, that's okay. We're going to come back, try human resources. Okay, and now we have 4 associated members. So we have some folks who are in the HR space. For example, Disha is recruitment manager. Let's actually go back to the job posting to give an example here. 1 second. Providing expertise across the years. Okay, so Chris, to answer your question, we can go to the company pages. We can filter the people tab and try to find those HR folks. You can do the same thing just doing the people search up here, type in things like recruiter or talent acquisition or human resources. We go to the people search. We add in a company. I'm just going to show you one really quick. Amazon, for example. And then there's a ton of recruiters, obviously Amazon. So what you want to do is you want to go through their profiles and see if they tell us what are the positions they're recruiting for. If you're a premium member, you can also activate this actively hiring tab that they might be looking for, let's say, area managers or software engineers. And now we're going to filter down to only people who have currently software engineer openings at Amazon and they're recruiting from those. Okay. Krista, did that answer your question in terms of finding those recruiters? It's a hit or miss. Not every company has it as easily available. Awesome. Okay. So for the sake of time, we're going to once again keep on going here. Share this tab for our network piece. Okay. All of these pieces are covered. Now we're going to find and apply. So how do we leverage the actual search bar on LinkedIn? A few really important things for you to keep in mind. I'm going to show you an example here. What I've done here, once again, I've added a specific title. If you wanted to, you could run a Boolean search. Once again, that could be a research scientist, let's say, or engineer. We can expand the scope a little bit that way. Okay. But what you want to keep in mind, you've noticed I've done a lot of searches so far on LinkedIn. Every time I've added quotation marks, and that means that we are looking for the exact search term. Okay. Let's imagine that I just type in data analyst. Oh, forgive me. Thank you, Stephen. We're looking right here. I'm the job board on LinkedIn now. So what I'm typing right here is data analyst. Okay. I'm going to search. What you'll notice that we have 35 results. But what you also notice, and actually we're looking with a couple of filters, so that's okay. But you'll notice that these position titles do not say data analyst. We say market analytics, analyst web analytics, etc. We want to once again use an exact search term. So we're going to put it right here. And now we go to 15 results, and now you notice job titles that are data analyst positions. So always, always, always include the quotation marks to include an exact search term. So that's tip one. Now, tip two that you want to look into. The reason why we only have 15 results is we added an industry. So you can do that if you want to, or you can remove it if you just want to look broader. Second, we added recent posts or recent job postings. Okay. So we added this filter for the timing when the post was opened. So past week to past 24 hours. The reason why you want to do that is this. 1 day ago, 57 people clicked apply. Now, clicked apply means that I simply click on this. It doesn't mean that I've actually applied. It's going to take me to the careers page. So this number is not accurate, but the point is that these positions that are open get a lot of applications very quickly. And if you're in corporate America, they're not going to wait around for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks to see how many applicants they get. They're going to start reviewing applications as soon as they flow in. And as soon as they have a qualified candidate, that qualified candidate is going to interviews. If they're good enough, they get an offer. So they might fill this position the first week. So if you apply this position 2, 3, 4 weeks in, it might already be filled. And it might be just lingering around while it's already being filled. So apply to early positions or prioritize those. You can apply for postings that are older, but I would absolutely prioritize past week. Now, let's go here. I'm going to go to all filters. One more filter we're adding. We're going to go all the way down here. We're going to add in your network. Activate that. No results right now. That's okay. We're going to remove medical manufacturing and show 91 results. So now what you find is only postings where you have connections or USF alumni at. So EY, maybe this position once again that you were interested in, maybe it's not. But if it is, you now can click on show all. And let's see, you have connections who work at EY. We have school alumni who work at EY, etc. So now what we're doing is reverse engineering using job board. We have postings that we want to apply to. We can see who can we reach out to get an informational interview, referral, or just put in a good word for us on our behalf of the folks we're actually recruiting. Okay. So let me go back here. Pausing for a second. Thoughts, questions on the job board. I think I switched it early enough, thanks to the two of you who made that comment. Thoughts, questions on the job board filters. We talked about search terms. We talked about the timing. We talked about the in-your network as well as the industry. Any thoughts, concerns about that? I don't see anything in the chat. So what we're going to do, we're going to keep on going. We have one more thing to cover through before we get to your questions that you might have at the end. Now, one thing to keep in mind about LinkedIn job board, I made a note here. Not every posting is on LinkedIn. So if you have a target company in mind, look at their careers pages on their website as opposed to just LinkedIn. They don't post every posting on LinkedIn because it costs money sometimes, as well as the fact that they just don't have the capacity to post everything. So look through their careers page first, in addition to LinkedIn. Okay, finally, informational interviews, job interviews. What you want to do as you prep for interviews, look through the company pages you have in mind. So if you're in this tab now, you should be seeing my Epic page here. What you want to do on LinkedIn before you prep for interviews, or as you prep for interviews, go to their pages. There's an about section. There's a little bit of their products, etc. You can always go to their website, but there's a lot more information there. So what you can do instead, go through this first. Also go through their posts. What you'll notice a lot of companies posting content. This will tell us what do they care about. Okay, I'm going to go through these pages here or the posts. Want to go through a little bit about their values. They talk about life-saving treatment. They talk about X, Y, and Z. They talk about some of their health systems. If there is something here in the post that really resonates with you, you can bring it up in an interview. You can ask questions about it. Maybe they talk about some of the key news or headlines or projects they've launched or research they've done, and now you can incorporate those into your answers. So if they ask you like, hey, what attracted you to apply to Epic? You can say, I've seen a lot of content from you talking about the values of your company or the recent innovations you've done or technologies you've launched, and that really attracts me because I want to do X, Y, and Z in my career. So utilize their posts, okay? They talk about the things on their feed that they care about. And if you align your values with what they talk about, chances are you become memorable. Now, second thing, I'm going to come back here, share this tab, interviewers. Always looking at the folks who are interviewing you. So once I'm going to go here, I'm going to use my friend David's profile. He's in advertising space and not exactly relevant to you, but I think his profile is fantastic, which I want to show it to you. He talks a lot about who he is once again as a professional, but also a lot about his own career. So he says he loves playing soccer. He's an LAFC fan. For me personally, I played soccer in college. I also watched the MLS. I'm a Charlotte fan instead of LAFC, but still, I would have a connection point with David that I could bring up either in the small talk or something else, right? So learn about their profiles, learn about who they are as people, as professionals. Additionally, if you notice there's 3 people in a panel interview for you on RPA or whatever company it might be, if all of them have stayed at the company for, let's say, 5 or 7 or 10 years, you can ask a question like, hey, I looked through your LinkedIn profiles. I noticed that all of you stayed at RPA for over the past 5 or 7 years. What's keeping it RPA as opposed to going to another agency, right? So once again, you're showing you've done your research and you're asking a question that really talks about who they are as opposed to just a general question. Okay. And the final thing in terms of prepping, this is not exactly LinkedIn related, but I want to show you anyway. If you go to my website, which is called strategicstudent.com, I have a ChatGPT interview prep guide. You also want to study the industry. And at the very bottom of this prompting, there is a prompt you can use in Perplexity or ChatGPT about researching the industry, and not just RPA or whether Epic or whatever company you're looking into, but the broader industry. So going back here, study the company, study the interviewers, study the industry. Okay, that is it for the main portion. I have a couple of things that I want to answer here afterwards because these are some of the questions that you sent in that I did not incorporate necessarily. But like I said, every step along the way, LinkedIn is here to hold your hand if you know what you're doing. So pausing here for a second, I have a few more slides here based on the questions that you sent ahead of time, but let's hit the pause, give you a second to breathe, give myself a second to breathe, and ask what are some thoughts, questions, concerns you might have about topics that we have covered so far. Anything that comes to mind, feel free to unmute yourself, pop it in the chat, and we can dive deeper into those. Esteban, key differences if you were also hoping to freelance on the side. Okay, good question, Esteban. Really depends on how serious that freelancing is for you. To give you some context, I have my own LLC on the side outside of working at Elon University. And my profile on LinkedIn is mainly dedicated to my LLC because it's a serious business for me. And it's at a stage where I really want to grow it. If you have the same situation, you really want to invest in the LLC you might have on the side or just being a sole prop, you can absolutely talk about it on LinkedIn. You can make it like the main theme of your LinkedIn. But if you are making that just a side hustle to make a little extra money on the side, but it's nothing super important to you, I would still focus mainly on your target career and then incorporate a little bit about your personality and incorporate a little bit about that side hustle. So the side hustle might be in the about section. It should absolutely be in the experience section as well, but it shouldn't be the main theme of your profile. So I'm going to go here, show you this tab at the bottom really quick. If you look at my profile, for example, my banner has nothing to do with Elon. I work there, but everything right here is pretty much focused on my side hustle. So find the balance that is right fit for you based on what is your priority, freelancing or a full-time role in a specific area. Okay, let's see. We would be able to access the PDF you showed. Jorge, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Terry will send that to you afterwards. Okay, so you will have access to all of those things in the strategy guide that I have created. David says, if I'm starting from scratch, I have no connections, any advice on where to start to build initial connections? So David, what I would do is I would look around you in terms of your program specifically, who are the people in the classroom that you know, your professors, staff members like Terry, etc. you can connect with. And then, like I said, optimize your profile before you do a lot of outreach to people you don't know, because what will happen once you start building that network, when you're building your presence, people will be looking at your profile. And if you really want to grow, if you really want to get a good first impression, optimize that profile based on the steps that we cover in terms of understanding the skills you want to be known for, the narrative you want to create in your about section, etc. Okay, thank you, Krista, for adding that there. Anything else about what we covered so far? Good questions here. Okay, let's see here. Posting on LinkedIn, what should the content focus on, major industry? Okay, fantastic segue. It's almost like I planted that question, so let's keep going based on that. Do you need to stand out? Or sorry, do you need to post to stand out? So before I answer that question, Nimish, maybe I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I apologize if I'm not. Before I answer your question, let me turn the tables on you a little bit and ask you this. Do you need to be posting on LinkedIn to stand out? And if yes, what are your thoughts on what kind of topics we could post about? So what comes to mind here? Do we need to post? And if we want to post, what do we post about? Give you a second to type some thoughts here. Recent breakthroughs. Okay, so that could be an announcement or landing an internship, or maybe even completing an internship, or some key takeaways for internships or something like that. Passionate about the skills you claim you have. Yeah, so Stephen, for an example, could be that you completed a certification about a specific skill and you want to promote that skill and say, hey, I just got certified. Great. Krista, if we post insightful, informed on our network, we're thrilled to see it. Yeah, I agree with that. So let me give you some ideas here, okay? So first, you do not need to post to stand out. It is not in any way mandatory or necessary to do that. If you want to be memorable, if you want to create a narrative that is within your control, if you will, you definitely can post. Now, a couple of thoughts on this. If you do post, like I said, it does help build your brand, your narrative, and showcase your interest or expertise or values. Now, Nimish, to your question specifically in terms of what do we post about, I want to go back to this strategy guide that I have created for you all. I'm going to go up here on the left-hand side. We're going to find posting. Oftentimes what I hear from students is things like, hey, I have nothing to say. I'm not an expert. Why would anyone listen to me? These are understandable thoughts. But the good news is you have more to say than you think. You have expertise in many areas and many people can benefit. So what does that look like in practice? You have nothing to say? Well, maybe you've studied abroad. Share that experience. Maybe you landed an internship. Share what you learned. Maybe you're a student leader on campus. Share your impact, right? You're not trying to come up with a breakthrough business solution for AI or some other innovative technology. What you will do instead, you talk about your experiences. What have I done? How could that help someone else? Okay, just share those insights and experiences. Can we access the copy of the document? Yes, this document will be available to you afterwards. I'm not an expert, okay? Maybe you're balancing school, work, and a side hustle. How are you doing that? Maybe you're a master networker. How do you approach that? Maybe you landed your target internship. How did you do that, right? What are the steps you took? And then why would anyone listen to me? Well, first of all, if you're a senior, if you're a junior, even a sophomore, there's probably a lot of students who are in the same shoes that you were a year or 2 years ago. And if you tell them this is how I landed my target internship, they will absolutely find value in that. Okay? Professionals, I think, Krista, you mentioned this. A lot of professionals love learning from student perspectives. I love learning from my students, the interns that I work with, right? I love getting your insights and thoughts on these things. And then finally, mentors, others in network, love hearing you win, right? What is an internship you landed? What is a skill that you built or a great experience you had at a specific workshop? What have you done? We love to be updated on those things. Okay, so once again, what have you learned, accomplished? What do you wish you knew a year ago? What is something that might benefit other students? Okay, welcome back to here. A couple more things on this slide. Commenting, that is, if you don't feel like you want to post, start with comments. They're almost like mini posts. Once again, if you find folks in your field, for example, and they talk about something super interesting, super insightful, leave a comment, ask a question, learn from their insights. There's no better way to learn from people than LinkedIn. Most content creators want to help, want to answer questions. So ask the questions, learn from them. Once you build that confidence through comments, then you can transition into posting. Okay. Let me go back here, comments. Perfect, that was helpful. Okay. I'm going to keep on going with a couple more slides in terms of your questions ahead of the workshop. but keep adding your thoughts in the chat if you want to, and we can come back to them as needed. LinkedIn Premium, okay? Is it worth it? This was another question, and it's a very common question overall. Once again, yes or no is fine if you want to put that in the chat, or if you want to dive a little bit deeper into yes or no and why. What do y'all think? Maybe. All right, we got a consultant answer. It depends, maybe. Yes, worth it. Try it and see. Yes. Give a couple more seconds if anyone has a strong opinion on this. Helpful, not absolutely needed. Okay, Thomas, you put it in the exact right terms that I would put it. And Stephen, depends on what stage. Yes, exactly. So it is that very consultant kind of an it depends answer. Okay, it depends on what you're using it for, why you're using it, what are your goals. Okay, so it is helpful if you're actively networking, applying to roles, because now you have those unlimited connection notes, you have in-mail credits, and you can use that actively hiring filter that I showed you briefly in terms of the Amazon example, where we might have a project manager person looking to recruit our PMs at Amazon. So there are benefits to it, but most of these premium perks have workarounds. So for example, if we don't have unlimited connection notes, we can look for open profiles. We can go through groups, right? So there are workarounds. Mark, yes, exactly. 1 month trial if you want to try it out. I'm going to come back here really quick to this document. We're going to go to, is LinkedIn Premium worth it? Okay. Use a free trial first. Activate as needed. So if you feel like you really do need it, buy it for 1 month at a time. Don't get the full 1 year subscription. Okay. In-mail credits, unlimited notes, actively hiring. Those are the main perks that you have. All right. We're going to come back here and we're going to keep on going. I think I have a couple more questions. All right, this one we have answered extensively already. I'm going to still show you really quick. Somebody asked a question, how do I help my profile stand out? Or what is the number one thing you would do? Or what is the one thing that everyone should do on LinkedIn? Align your profile with the right recruiters. Understand, what does my target audience care about? So you want to know what are the target companies, target roles that I have in mind? What are the key things that they look for in their postings? Knowledge, skills, certifications, and how do I incorporate those into my profile? Because now, A, you're making yourself qualify for those roles, and B, you're attracting the right recruiters to your profile. If your profile is all marketing focused when you really want to go to computer science, you will get a reach out from marketing recruiters, and that is not what you want to do. You want to get computer science folks coming to you. Okay, so study their preferences, see there if you can optimize the profile. Okay, Terry said she'll be able to share the PDF tomorrow. Awesome, perfect. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? All right, this was a good question. I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially, should I only list experience relevant to target field, or can I also include unrelated jobs and activities? And I think, Esteban, you had also this question in terms of freelancing, etc. So the same kind of an answer. It should be prioritized based on your target role. Once again, PM or whatever those skills are. But LinkedIn is a great avenue providing a more holistic view of who you are. So the About section is a great way for you to talk about your interests or passions or hobbies. We also have the experience section or the volunteering section that talks about the cause you care about it, maybe have a side hustle, etc. So prioritize target roles, but absolutely do add information about the outside of that target role, because it brings that more holistic narrative of who you are as a person. And a lot of that content might resonate with the recruiters. Okay, and let's see if you have anything else. How do I engage with recruiters on LinkedIn before and after applying for a job? This goes back to the connection notes that we had in terms of what do you say in those notes. You can reach out to recruiters ahead of time on LinkedIn if you want to say that you want to apply or you want to learn more about a role, perfectly fine. But especially after you apply for a job, what you want to do is the exact note that we send in terms of a specific job you're interested in, qualifying yourself for the job by adding some skills, and then a soft CD at the end. That could be something that would love to learn more about the position, or are you still reviewing candidates? I'd love to be considered. Krista, in what ways do recruiters benefit when a person who already applied reaches out to them? Good question, Krista. Let's imagine we have once again 250 applicants. I'm using what we call applicant tracking system. If I was a recruiter, it's almost like a digital filing cabinet for all the candidates that come through applying for my postings. They have their resume, their cover letter there, etc. If I don't feel like going through every single posting, I might go through a batch of 50 of them first and then leave the rest for the next time that I come back to the platform. If I'm going through the 50 and you were applicant 51, maybe I wouldn't see your resume, right? But if I now send you a note and you get a note from Lasse and I list the exact skills you look for, chances are that you will go out of your way to find my resume on the ATS platform or application as a whole. So bringing the attention to those folks is helpful so they can actually see you're qualified and find you an ATS system. Second, so few people actually reach out to recruiters that it once again makes you memorable, shows that you're a professional, and leaves a good impression, especially if your profile is optimized. Do they have the right to not look at applications past the critical mass of qualified? I'm not a recruiter, Krista, so I don't want to say a hard yes or no here, but what I do know once again is that they look through them in batches. So let's imagine on the first day there's 50 applicants. Chances are they will go through those and start pushing people to interviews already. And then maybe you apply on day 3 or 4. There might be some folks who are in the interview pipeline, but at least you're bringing to their attention that you have applied and they can always be on the lookout for your name. So I don't want to say from any legal perspective if they have like the right legally or anything like that. But I do know that they are not waiting around to see how many applicants come in. So that way, if you are not an early applicant, let them know, and maybe they will be on the lookout for you if you qualify yourself well enough. Okay, Chris, I hope that was helpful in terms of that. Okay, so we covered this already. Mention the role, qualify yourself, and a call to action. All right, that is all that I had for you. I know we covered a ton of content. So please let me know if there's anything that we can dive deeper into, anything that I did not cover, anything that I was completely unclear about, or anything in between. But at this point, Terry, I'm going to let folks pop anything in the chat, but I'm going to also show the couple of slides here at the end. So second question I have for you, questions or some key takeaways. So if you felt like you really learned something today, that would be really helpful for me to know, because that way I can incorporate more of those topics into the sessions for my future audiences. So I'm going to put in the chat here for you really quick. Okay, first, questions or 2, let's say, key takeaways. Okay, I'll come back to the questions here in a second, but the other slides I want to pull up while we're answering any further questions here. Once again, thank you, USF Medical Engineering, for sponsoring this session, inviting me. If you want to connect with me, follow me. I'll come back to this in a second. You can use these QR codes here in a second. Okay. On the left is my LinkedIn profile. I post content every single week, multiple times for students, exactly related to all these topics we talked about today: landing internships, excelling in college, etc. On the right-hand side is also my website, The Strategic Student. Tons of free resources for students in terms of, once again, career fair preparations, interview preparations, resume building, LinkedIn profiles, everything in between. And I add content every single month. So follow me on LinkedIn if you want to. Check out my website. And then the final thing I want to say, if you really found value in this workshop, talk to your staff, talk to your faculty, and talk about the other things that I also do. Internships that count workshop. So how do you turn internships into return offers, using AI in your internship job search, and college by design that really helps you make the most of your experience in college and be very purposeful at what you do. Okay, here we are. Those are all the things that I wanted to cover. So let me pop this open for you all while you ask any questions or thoughts here. But let me hit the pause button here for now. So questions, key takeaways, if you want to put in the chat, fantastic. If not, please check out my profile or website. And that's where I'm going to rest for a second, Terry. I think we have actually one more question here. Does 500 connections matter? It does matter in terms of building credibility for your profile. So what LinkedIn calls it is what we say an all-star profile. When you have an all-star profile, your search functionality is a little bit better than somebody who only has, let's say, 5 connections. If you only have 5 connections, you might not have all the details that an all-star profile would have when you view people's profiles. Okay, we have LinkedIn track how responsive you are the messages. What do you say it's important to respond? Esteban, you don't have to respond to any messages you don't want to respond to. But one thing I will say, that if you choose ever to create content or post or like content, etc., and you want people to see that, if you have had a conversation in the DMs with someone and they have engaged with you on that area of LinkedIn, they will likely see all that you do on LinkedIn moving forward. So the feed will now show them like, hey, let's say reacted or posted or commented because we had that interaction. So you don't have to respond to everything unless you want those people to see what you are doing on LinkedIn in terms of engaging and creating content. Tuning company talent community. Krista, I'm not exactly sure about the talent community piece, but what I will say that what you can do on LinkedIn, I can go right here. I can once again type in, for example, Epic, and I can go to their page, and I'm going to go to the About section right here. If I click there, I can go all the way down, and I can click right here that I'm interested in working with Epic. If I click on this, it's going to activate a 12-month period essentially, where every time recruiters filter people based on their searches, they can look for people who are engaged with their brand or engaged with their company. And if I have activated this, recruiters will now see my profile as opposed to someone who has not activated this filter. So if you have target companies in mind, click on this. I'm interested. Not a huge push on your end, but it just shows recruiters they can filter based on folks who really want to work with your company specifically. It's active 12 months at a time. Not every company has this. They have to activate it on their end, but always do check it out, so that might help. Okay, Angel, thank you for your time. Optimizing profile, reaching out. Yeah. Giraldi, I believe I'm pronouncing your name hopefully correctly. Terry will share that with you afterwards. So that way you will have access to that. Okay. We are right at 7:33. So we've covered a lot of ground today. I'm going to go back here once again. If you want to pop any of these open, but let's see, Mark, graduate someone would like to know activities I should do as I'm writing decisions on applications, finding positions. Good question, Mark. So you don't have a ton of time, frankly, in terms of today and when you were graduating. So what you want to look for is ask yourself, have I done things in the past that are relevant to my target careers? How do I tell that story in my resume, LinkedIn, other applications, etc.? But outside of that, you can absolutely look to do freelancing. You can do volunteering on the side. Maybe there's still some campus activities you can be a part of and engaging, etc. To give you an example, I had a student a couple of years ago who wanted to go to marketing, had no experience in marketing. So what she did, she worked with a local animal shelter to go to their Facebook, build their engagement there, build their audience on Facebook, increase the number of adoptions they had for the pets that they had, etc. So that was her way of finding a volunteering opportunity that was not paid, but what she could do to really leverage a volunteering experience that was outside of an internship or something that is relevant to her target career. Okay. I think we're hitting our time limit here, Terry. So I'm gonna pause here for a second. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and you're welcome to take over, and I'll just stick around here if anyone else has questions outside of the actual programming piece.
Okay. I see some positive comments. As you can see, Lasse is amazing. Do make sure you are following him. I do recommend that you follow me. And if you are interested in some of his other presentations, now that you've seen this one, please reach out to your different departments. Medical engineering sponsored this one, and you can see it was very worthwhile. And hopefully we can get him to come back. So I will be getting the documents to you as soon as I have them. I do work for medical engineering, and I'm going to try and do everyone who attended will be emailed the content of his PDF. And if the video doesn't need massive editing from the front end, then that'll be going out at the same time. Typically, you have access to the video if you were in the meeting. So foxt1@usf.edu, but you'll find me. Thank you, guys.
Perfect. And Terry, like I said, I'll stick around just for a couple of minutes in case there's someone who didn't feel comfortable asking a question in the main chat or anything like that. And that way we can always answer those questions.
All right.
It looks like folks are leaving. That's also fine. I'll just make sure that the counter goes down to low enough of a number where I'll make sure that I answer any folks that might be sticking around. Thank you all. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you found value. Okay, let's see. International students, Eric. International students can do through LinkedIn standout and have better hopes of finding a job. So Eric, there's no, magic bullet that you can do here in terms of that. What I would do, and this is something Terry might have also mentioned to you, is look for companies that are used to working with international students. So that's one thing. So they might be more willing to, entertain the opportunity to hire an international student. Second, look for USF alums who might be international students. So if you can find those on LinkedIn using specific search terms or some other avenues, poke around and see if there's a way to do that. There's no filter for that, so you have to get creative in terms of search terms. Finally, talk to your faculty members, professors, staff members, etc., and ask them if they know international students from the past years, alums currently, who have managed to land a job in their target roles, and ask to connect with them. So that way you're getting insights from someone who's gone through the same process that you are about to go through, as opposed to just hoping for the best. But there are tools on online, like h1bvisa.com, I think, or something along those lines. You can use ChatGPT to find these websites that specifically list only opportunities with companies that sponsor international students and are happy to do OPT, CPT extensions, etc. Eric, I hope that helps a little bit. And then Anosh, emailing the presentation. Yes, Terry will be emailing that to you. Okay, so we still have 14 folks on the call, but I don't see any other questions. So once again, thanks so much for joining us. If you have questions you want to ask afterwards, just hop over to my LinkedIn profile, send me a message, connect with me, and I'm happy to support you that way.